countdown will begin tomorrow afternoon at 2, right here on 97 Fun, where the music... Shit. The countdown will begin this morning at 9, right here on WMNS 13. God damn, what a call letter. Let me do it again. The countdown will begin this afternoon at 1, right here on the entertaining 1410 WHLN. That sucks.
Yeah, tell me a question.
WKRM.
There you go.
Well, since we've been doing a quote-unquote countdown, I thought it'd be appropriate to bring in a guy who, for some people, was a voice of radio for them growing up, the American Top 40, Casey Kasem. But that blooper reel is probably one of the best pieces of audio out there. It is bring me such joy every time I listen to it. And, you know, we've done a countdown. We've been doing this now for the last few days. If you've been watching us, this is the first one we've done live because pending, you know, there might be a signing this evening. I don't know. I mean, right now in the NBA, there was a big trade that just happened.
Yeah.
Jimmy Butler went to Golden State.
Yeah. And I don't know. Yeah. We've done them all. We've talked about 41 other prospects in the system. May as well talk about the top 5 with people watching. So, yeah, no, it's funny. Thinking about the countdown, I think I remember listening to Casey Kasem as a kid on the radio, and then like the only other countdown that I could kind of remember was Total Request Live, which was, you know, the MTV show in the late 90s, early 2000s that was super popular for a bit with Carson Daly.
God, that was such a terrible show.
I don't know if they even do a countdown anymore. It would probably be Ryan Seacrest, but
no, they stopped. They got rid of it a while ago.
But we're doing a countdown.
Yeah, we're doing the countdown. So, and no Ashley this evening. Ashley will be. She did a video for us, and she'll be doing stuff with us. We'll let people know when Ashley will come on. So, for now,
animals.
Yeah. So, yeah, rest in peace. Yeah, good call there on that, because I remember it was right after high school, or like towards the end of high school, that was on, and I tuned out MTV after that. But so this evening we're going down finishing up our top 46 list, 5 through number 1, and this kind of merits a lot of time because these top 5 prospects have appeared on the other list. We just did a top overview of the top 100, where the Tigers are among other lists popularity wise. And so Baseball America today announced that their farm system rankings in Boston, for the first time in team history since they started these team rankings over in 1984, is that they'll be number 1. They're number 1, even with they traded a lot of those guys in the Garrett Crochet deal. They boast 3 of the baseball's 15 best prospects. This is the Tigers' highest they've ever been ranked as a team in Baseball America history. So, and the highest before that was 2021 when they were 4th. But though for the Tigers, though, it's interesting. They were just 26 2 years ago, and I know that people were giving Scott Harris a lot of credit. Again, we'll have to say this till we're blue in the face. It's not just Scott Harris.
Yeah,
it's Ryan Garco. There's a lot of other people involved with this, and I know that Scott Harris is the face of the organization. I get it, but credit where credit's due. You know, you have to give credit to guys like Gabe Alvarez, and who just did a nice heartfelt message to the fans in Erie. There's a lot of pitching coaches. There's a lot of just them. The Tigers have pumped a lot of money into this situation. Yes, Scott Harris deserves credit. I'm not disputing that whatsoever, but there's a lot of other people involved in this. And so with that, and it starts with Ryan Garco, and because Garco came here a few years ago, right before Avila, or right when Avila got fired, and he started the process of doing the most fundamental things in the world for a farm system. So don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. And of course, for our GoFundMe or Patreon, please subscribe to that. There's links on our website, links on our Twitter as well. So it looks like right now, spring training might be more of a March thing right now, based off things, how they're going right now, but it's okay. No big deal. People have been enjoying the extra content and all that. And so, yeah, but anyway, I just want to make that clear. It's just Scott Harris deserves a lot of credit. It's kind of weird sometimes when you see the amount of in Scott Harris we believe, and we've had him on the podcast.
Yeah. Well, you know, that's just another example of kind of the way things go with sports. It's whoever is the most prominent person, be it the general manager, the manager, the quarterback, whomever, they're going to get an outsized amount of credit when things go right and an outsized amount of blame when things go wrong. That's just kind of the nature of the business. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to complain about what's happened with the Tigers farm system in the last few years. We were talking just before the show. They were ranked 26 a couple of years ago, and we back then said that that's wrong. This farm system isn't nearly that bad. And that was the year I think they started the year with maybe no top 100 prospects, and we're like, what? Like Colt Keith is a top 100 prospect, but other people didn't pick up on that until later. But it is interesting, that the Red Sox, we were just saying this, the Red Sox have the number one farm system in baseball America. I don't think they have anybody outside of the top 15. So they have 3 top 15 prospects, and that's it. But Baseball America, I think, would argue that having those top tier prospects is going to bring you more value than having more depth. And the Tigers have 3 of the top 25 and then 2 more. But I guess, having 2 of the top 5 prospects in Roman Anthony and Christian Campbell outweighs that, which is fine. That's one way to look at it. We said ESPN, Kylie McDaniel has the 3rd ranked system, and the way they do it, or he does it, is by assigning a future value, an FV, to each player, and then assigning a dollar value to each FV and adding it up. And so the Tigers have the 3rd best system, according to him. And then Keith Law, who has 7 Tigers in his top 100, somehow has them the 7th ranked system, which is fine. Whatever. Top 10. This is all objective, or subjective, I should say. But yeah, certainly, more good news about the Tigers.
Yeah, and the hits continue, and depending on what happens this next 24 hours, 48 hours, that good news, good vibe. That is weird, because there is a little weird thing that too. They haven't. Somebody was mentioning our Discord about Jack Flaherty not having his. They haven't announced a 40-man roster move yet, which I think takes a couple days anyway. But it is quite strange. It's getting a little. Is it late in the? I don't think it's late in the game, is it? I mean,
no, it just depends. So the Tommy Kahnle signing, they announced it and it was official like 2 hours later. So that was just stuff was going on behind the scenes and nobody really knew about it, and it was done and done. A lot of times guys will agree to a deal and it just takes a little bit longer. Remember, who's the reliever that the Dodgers announced that they were signing, and then the deal wasn't official for like 10 days. Is it Kirby Yates?
It was Kirby Yates.
Yeah. So sometimes it just takes a little longer. I don't know if Jack Flaherty is, on the other side of the country. They want to get a closer look at him. There's stuff that they want to iron out. I don't think it's a big deal. I'm just kind of curious when it's going to happen.
Yeah, there's no cause for concern kind of thing. And so the next thing is obviously the Alex Bregman sweepstakes, whether the Tigers win or there's smoke to the fire about the Cubs. So, but Kevin said no 40-man move until the physical's done, from what I read. Friday physical, probably. That's no, you're right, Kevin. But it's just kind of weird because it would seem like it's. But there's some going factors that, again, I'm not going to be. There's no conspiracy behind it or anything like that. But just, I think that by now I thought some things would be moving along, but it's been, again, ultra quiet on the Tigers side of things. The Tigers officially announce it.
It hasn't. It was they haven't. They don't normally officially announce it until it's totally done.
Yeah.
So it came out that they agreed to a deal pending a physical, and we're waiting on the physical. I didn't hear that it was Friday, but if Kevin heard that, then I believe him. So yeah. I mean, it's sometimes they just take a little bit longer. But
so Nick C wants to know real quick before we get into our top 5: would you trade the entire Tigers offseason so far for Alex Bregman? If not, how much of it would you?
I wouldn't. I mean, just from a pure WAR perspective, I think Torres is projected for 3. Flaherty's projected for 2.5. Kahnle, you don't need to worry about WAR. Cobb is projected for like 2+, I think, or just 2. Like that's what 7-8 wins above replacement there, which is like twice of what Bregman is projected. If you like, I think if you went back and knew that you were going to get Jack Flaherty for a short-term deal for this amount of money, they probably wouldn't have signed Alex Cobb. Who knows? Maybe they really love him, but it just feels like, in hindsight, that maybe they wouldn't have done that and could have done something else. But other than that, like, they got a bat misser in the bullpen. They got a couple starters. They got a positive offensive player on the infield. I think it's been a pretty good offseason, and it'd be excellent if they can get Bregman, but we'll see.
Yeah, I personally think that they would have still added another starter regardless, because Alex Cobb is one of those things where his injury history leaves him as kind of like a question mark throughout the season. So, I mean, it's not automatic. I mean, you can automatically, maybe I'm not saying necessarily an automatic thing they pitch 120 innings, but with Flaherty now there in the mix, you have starter depth that you didn't have there before. Not to say the Tigers didn't have that on the farm system side, but Matt Manning, like it's one of those things where, like you don't know what you have with Matt Manning or Casey Mize. So adding Flaherty with Cobb makes sense. And as far as like, the one thing that I want the Tigers to do myself is to trade for another right-handed bat to get, if they don't get Bregman, then make that trade to acquire a little more power. I think that would complete the offseason for me. I think the offseason has been fine. They've been active. If you look at the rest of the division, the rest of the division has been, outside of Kansas City, has been very inactive. The White Sox have been doing some interesting things, I guess. But I mean, the Twins signed Harrison Bader today. Ooh,
yeah.
So I don't really. I think the Tigers have done fine. The one thing that, to finish answering your question, Nick, I would like them to get another bat, and if they don't get Bregman, then maybe something else, because then I would put that offseason as considerably 100% more successful. If it happens, look, Detroit Degenerate, if Bregman, this is the reason why we're doing the show live tonight. Normally we've been recording these, but we're just going on a hunch, educated guess that Bregman might sign this evening. But again, he might not sign till this weekend. He might not sign till the day of spring training. I don't know what exactly, but there was some smoke signals sent out, and that wasn't anything on Twitter. But real quick, before we get to there's one more question, and then, like I said, if you want to ask us a question, there's always like the PayPal feature or what have you. Dave here on the Days of War podcast, Evan Petzel, great, by the way, shout out to those guys. They've been plugging us, and we want to plug those guys. Really good podcast over there. Discussed how the Tigers built their entire offseason around getting Bregman. That said, with the nice moves they made today, what grade would you give the offseason if we don't get Bregman? Keep in mind the other bats they could have pursued. That's a really, really good question, David. And if I'm gonna, sometimes I don't like doing grades because it's so like. The only time I don't like doing, I take that back. The only time I don't like doing grades is draft grades, because draft grades are, to me, dumb, because I know you have to grade drafts, but I don't like doing that because it's so, for example, Owen Hall was throwing 98 today, 99. We saw him pitching on Twitter, and that's really good. And that's more progressive. Like, it's just, you can't really grade. You can only grade on projection sometimes, but I don't know. Anyways, I would give this offseason a B, because they were able to get a reliever. They were able to get two starters. Maybe like a low B, only because I feel like, again, just getting that bat would give them. I thought a trade too. Again, I love the Tigers to make a trade, some creative trade. And what I mean by creative trade is somebody that's going to they offset something that they desperately need, which is another bat or another outfielder, like for depth purposes, because the Tigers, if they have an injury to the outfield, they're kind of hosed right now a little bit. I mean, they don't really have a option in AAA or AA that's ready to go as far as major league talent outfield wise. If you really think about it, Chris, I mean, if you look at their depth chart heading into this season, let's just look at the outfield real quick. Heading into this season. So you have Parker Meadows, you have Riley Green, and you have Kerry Carpenter DH, playing right field. And then you have Winfield Perez, who, you have to figure out how he's going to fit his bat off the bench. And then after that, it is kind of a free for all in the outfield a little bit, isn't it? I mean,
you would be Veerling,
yeah,
in that mix. But yeah, I'm trying to think. Yeah, after that, you are dealing with some guys. You're talking McKinstry in the outfield, or Eddie's Leonard, joining the 40-man and playing the outfield. Akil Baddoo coming back up, playing the outfield, right? Like, it's they have some bodies, but nobody that's gonna
Malloy's not playing and Sean Malloy's not playing the outfield. He's not.
In an emergency situation, he would, but yeah, it's
only in emergency purposes. And here's why I'm going to give him a B. Why should I give him an A? I mean, because here's the thing, like you still have to address one thing, a right-handed bat, and they haven't done that yet. So that's why I'm giving them a B. Simply that. It's just, you get Bregman, then I'll give them an A. But here's the thing, like the reason why I was talking about the outfield, like they signed non-roster invitee Jamil Jones, and then of course you have Akil Badu, but those are not, like, if Riley Green goes down for a significant period of time, which he has in the past, you're kind of hosed. So, I mean, Perez is there, like, I really think that Perez is a good, Perez is good. And he's fine. Is he a guy that can play the full season? We don't know yet. I mean, the way that AJ Hinch used him last year was pretty brilliant. So I just, I'm one of those people that, like, I love to have more is good. More is good, especially with the way injuries pile up in the major leagues. Look at the Minnesota Twins, for example. We were just talking about this yesterday on the recording. Royce Lewis, talk about Buxton, all these injuries the Twins had. It cost them. It cost them the season last year a little bit. I mean, of course, bad luck to its side, but still, you always want to have enough. Like, to me, you can never have enough depth. So that's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
How about you, Chris?
Yeah, I'm for grading the offseason. I mean, we came into the offseason thinking the Tigers needed one thing, a right-handed power bat. And they still haven't gotten that, really. I mean, they got Gleyber Torres. He's a good right-handed bat, but to do that, they are kind of casting Spencer Torkelson aside. So it's almost like a 1-for-1, really. I mean, you hope that Torres is a better overall offensive player. So I mean, that was their big glaring weakness, and they haven't really addressed it. I like everything else they've done. All the other moves, they've improved their pitching depth. They've improved their bullpen. That's all great. But yeah, I would never say like it's a failure of an offseason if they don't get Bregman, and he's not, a power bat per se, but he, a gold glove level third baseman, great offensive player. There are some concerns that, last year was a down year for him, but a lot of the underlying data suggested it was a really weird year. And from May 1st on, he was just as good a hitter as Riley Green, basically. So I'm not too concerned about him falling off a cliff or anything like that. You never know, but like getting him, and it would be an A offseason. If you don't get him, it's a B- probably.
What else could they have done, Sean? If they could have made a trade. They could have done a little things. I'm not nitpicking this to death. I'm just not going to give them an A- because the Tigers have done things, and that's great. I'm glad we're having this debate, but I'm steadfast with staying with the B, because until they address the situation, like, there's a glaring hole at third base right now. Whether you if you look at Jace Young's defensive metrics, he was the worst third baseman. So if they believe trade for what third baseman is there? Nolan Arenado, but then of course he waived it. He's not going to waive his no trade clause. There's ways you can be creative with things. I understand that they don't grow on trees, but again, what else are they going to do? They can do something. And Scott Harris has mentioned he would make a trade. So where was that at? Where's that been? There's other guys out there that they might value that we might not even consider of. Again, that's why I just said that about Arenado. I don't know. I'm just talking to one person. There's other people in here.
Yeah, but no, I mean, like, the thing is, the only other really third baseman out there who was available was Jake Berger, right? Who hit 29 home runs, and that was 2 months ago that he got signed or got traded for by Texas. It would. And if you go through the third baseman, it's like Jose Ramirez isn't going anywhere. Machado's not going anywhere. Devers isn't going anywhere. Chapman just signed. Jazz Chisholm, I don't think the Yankees are looking to trade him. You could maybe, we talked about Eugenio Suarez a couple times, maybe trying to swing a deal there. But I don't know. Like it would have probably had to be something more creative, where you get an outfielder and move Veerling to third, something like that. But it is interesting. You look at players who are theoretically on the trade block, and there just really aren't many. And also, if you look at upcoming free agents over the next 2-3 seasons, it's pretty stark for bats. It's like Kyle Tucker, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, and Josh brings up the Alex Rome rumors, and that was a case, but they weren't really, from what I've heard, the Tigers weren't really high on him anyway.
Yeah, and Alec Boehm is Matt Vierling. They're like the exact same hitter, like the same amount of power. It's fine, but why not just stick with the guy you already have? Brett Beatty doesn't do anything for me. He hasn't proven he can hit the big league level. I don't like. Yeah, there aren't any great options out there. We'll see what happens if they sign Bregman. If they don't, yeah,
doing nutting things. So I like the pun there. Nicely done, Sean. That's well done there. Yeah. And look, and K. Bryan doesn't do anything for myself either. I just don't think that like he is, I think as far as what they could do with Young, Nick, to answer the question, then I would get in the top 5. Simply put, he could just be shuttled back and forth between Toledo, and then if Torres doesn't come back, they put him at second and Keith at first, and there you go.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go.
Yeah, I think if they sign Bregman, I think Young is going down to Toledo or possibly some sort of trade. But yeah, I think he's down in Toledo and probably playing second base and third base, just to stay fresh at both.
Yeah. So is a thing is, like I said, whether the Tigers are in the position to get, the point is they've gotten better, and there's not, I'm not going to nitpick an A between a B, but right now, like I said, there's a way that they could, if you if you want to do the Mark Ryan route, should the Tigers trade for Jackson Holiday, put him at third, going now, it's 248-539-97.
I don't know.
You could be Baltimore. I mean, Baltimore has not done jack squat.
I proposed a couple months ago, trade Jackson Jobe for Kobe Mayo, right? You're getting one of the best young third base prospects in baseball. I don't know if a lot of Tigers fans would want to do that, though. Jobe is considered the better overall prospect. Mayo has some warts on him, but if you can get creative like that, but it doesn't seem to be that. I don't think Scott Harris wants to trade his prospect capital just yet, especially a guy that we'll be talking about soon who figures to slot in the rotation.
Yeah, again, I think he's going to make a trade, whether it's just something small or what have you. I just think that it's just got to be somebody that he likes. I mean, Scott Harris, when he likes somebody, and there's somebody on our list that we'll get to in a second that he's a big fan of that is not being well represented. But let's start with number 5 and Jose Briceño. And Briceño had himself. I want to present. There's 2 things I want to present with Jose Briceño. I do want to present 2 forms of video because the reason why I want to present 2 videos is because there's some differences in his swing. I want to know if there's some differences in his swing because he talked to Emily Walden when Emily Walden was out there, Arizona Fall League. She did a report for us, and so he was talking some of his. This is Arizona Fall League. Right after his knee surgery, he didn't catch. I don't think he's going to be catching going forward, which is good because you want to keep this guy healthy. And by the way, the video is courtesy of just baseball, the YouTube channel. I always want to make sure we give credit where credit's due there. But yeah, he won a Triple Crown in the Arizona Fall League. What more? I mean, that's a good way to end the year.
Yeah, it's really kind of a fascinating prospect story, right? Because we knew about Briceño when he signed because he was one of the 3 or 4 largest bonuses they got that year, but we didn't really think much of him. He didn't have a great first season in the Dominican Summer League. It was okay, but nothing like it would jump off the page. But then he got off to an incredible start in the Complex League 2 years ago, right? And we were like, it might be time to start paying attention to this guy. And then he slowed down a little bit, but it was still a really good season. And then he jumped up to low A at the end of the year and kept hitting. And we're like, all right, now this is something to keep an eye on.
So
and
by the way, after all that, by the way, sorry to interrupt. Hold on, let me just pause. After all that posturing BS, Pete Alonso's back. The Mets. Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Nick, for passing that along.
2 years and an opt out after the first season. $30 million this year. Well, there you go. So yeah, speaking of power hitting first baseman, Briceño. So, and then we started to hear, we got some video from down in the Complex League from Sherry, I believe, right?
Yeah, sure. Yep.
Not the Complex League, even the
Florida,
Florida State League, like playoffs and down the stretch. And we did find some Complex League videos, and he was putting up these really high exit velocities, just hitting the ball super hard. And so we started to get a little excited. And then like the hype got real, right? When he hit a ball basically 112 miles an hour off Mick Abel, who was at the time a top 100 prospect in the spring breakout game. It's like, all right, we got something here. And we talked about him. He got off to a really good start again this year in the Florida State League, talking about his approach was so advanced that he might have to move up a level just to get challenged. And then, then he got hurt and was gone for more than 3 months. When he came back, he just didn't seem right. That's first, I think it was probably another 20 games, 15 games, maybe.
Yeah.
In Lakeland. He only played 40 games in low A this year. And to see a guy with 40 games at low A suddenly hop into a top 100 list, a lot of them, is kind of wild. But that's what happens when you go out and put in like the most epic Arizona Fall League performance anybody's ever seen. Anytime you get a triple ground, there's some extenuating circumstances. You have to get a little lucky, RBIs, whatever. It has to have people on base. But yeah, he just went out there and tore the cover off the ball for 6 weeks. And there's a lot to like there. You're looking at a guy with plus game power, plus bat to ball skills, plus plate discipline, like a really awesome combination on offense. And to get what I'm saying, his swinging strike rate last year was 7.5%, which is roughly the same as Matt Vierling's. Juan Soto's is 7.4. Now this is the big league compared to low A, but that tells you how often he swings and misses. And he doesn't chase very much, and he swings at strikes a lot. It's like a 74% in zone strike swinging strike rate. So he's up there doing damage. He swings at the right pitches, and the way I kind of describe him is he's a hitter with power. Kind of, I'm not making a comparison here, but that's how I always viewed like Miguel Cabrera. Right, he was a hitter first who just happened to be very strong and very good at hitting for power. And we saw that Brice went into the home run derby and didn't do much of anything because he's not built like that. He's just a guy who crushes balls in game. And so, like it's a really exciting batting profile. I actually had him behind Lorenzo just for two reasons. One is the defense, right?
Yeah.
It seems like Lorenzo has an actual chance to stick at catcher, and we don't really know, if Briseño can even play first base. He'll probably be fine there eventually. And then the one other tiny little nitpick, and you heard some scouts say this, is that there's a belief that he's kind of one of those classic strength over bat speed guys, right? So
that's what Jeff Pontus was telling us too.
Yeah, and that's Jeff is repeating the concerns of scouts. And you look in Lakeland, he only hit 150 against four-seamers in Lakeland last year. He crushed sinkers, he crushed breaking balls, he crushed changeups. And I think the key, though, is what you talked about earlier with when he talked to Emily, he said he got more athletic in his lower half. And I think that allowed him to get to more fastballs in the AFL. So it's just a tiny concern, but it was one that, if he's not going to hit premium velocity, then you've got some issues. But to me, it's like I said, it's plus power, plus hit, plus on base ability. I think you can make a reasonable ceiling of him as like a Brandon Belt or Nathaniel Lowe kind of guy. He's going to hit you 18 to 28 home runs and 260 to 280 with double-digit walk rate, and like a 3 to 4 win player just with his bat. So really exciting, and curious to see what he does this year.
Yeah, and it really is. He's going to be starting the season at West Michigan, which is, again, a league that's not a hitter-friendly league. So that's where people, if he's hitting 270, 280 in West Michigan, then that's some eyebrow raising because of how much of that league it takes. First and foremost, weather-wise, too, is an adjustment for any of the Latin players playing in this kind of environment up here in the Midwest. And second, the ballpark at LMCU is such as Dan Hasty would say, it's humongous. It's a national park at times. So it's a different type of dynamic altogether from what he's going to be doing that. So I'll stop the video for a second because I wanted to bring up so we saw his swing. I think we had enough there to look at his Arizona Fall League stuff. Now let's look at his stuff. The reason why I wanted to look at his swing before was to see the changes, so just to kind of see where we're looking at here and how much it has changed, if you will. And so this was from last year, beginning of last year, I believe it is, that you pulled. I think you did the video for.
Oh yeah, we did like a week's worth of plate appearances for him.
Correct. Yeah. I got that going right here. So I wanted to see if anybody out there who's watching right now with us live, just kind of noticing anything unusual, like different about his footwork or anything. And it just seems like there's less moving parts in the lower part.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't ever sit down and look at it really closely to see what he changed. It just it sounded like maybe he just got a little bit more flexible with, like, with his hips. I don't know. Some people might spot something. Maybe the stance isn't quite as open. But the one thing you'll see in this video is him basically spitting on anything that's not a strike.
I think the stance. I mean, if you look at the way his feet are in the box too, a little bit. There's not as. Let's see here. I feel like I'm sometimes I get it like, well, just get caught and look in the feet here, but this is where I'm looking at right here. Mm-hmm. All right, so we have I think we have an inclining there with that. So let's go back. Let's go back to the tape, shall we? Mm-hmm. But this is the reason why we weren't gonna power through and just do the top 5 and just kind of half-ass it. I really want to really get into the meat and potatoes with these guys, because these guys have come on other lists very, very high. Yeah, and it already shows right here. I'm going to show you right. This is actually a perfect example of that right here coming up. So his feet, he is moving less in the box. If you notice this in his swing already. Let's see here. All right. And let me also get rid of this banner too, because we know his foot. See how like before it was kind of like out. See his feet just simply spread apart. He's not doing too much. Feet looks a lot more balanced.
It's tough for me to tell because it's just a different angle. But yeah, I mean, clearly something worked, right? Yeah. Like there was some sort of change that allowed him to get into more power and to, continue hitting for average and get on base. It was fun to watch, man. Like every night. You're like, well, what's he going to do today? And it's like, he'll just go for 5 for 5. Oh, 3 home runs. Homered off Andrew Painter. So just a lot of great stuff there for Briceño. And yeah, like I said, like he's our number 5 prospect. Lorenzo was number 6. They're super close. It's very fun to have 2 guys like that in the system. Potential middle of the order bats down the road. And yeah, like one of many prospects we're going to be paying a lot of attention to this year, because he's got a pretty high ceiling.
Yeah. And I know it's a different angle, but it did to me look like his feet were a lot more balanced and spread through versus, I mean, you can even tell in the same. Okay, so let's see here. The same angle. If we're going to look at it, the same angle from but from far away, just so I'm not crazy. I don't feel like I'm crazy here.
Oof.
Yeah, he watched that.
Yeah, that was he looked I don't know, his crouch looked a little different to me. Yeah. Maybe it was, I don't know. Like I'm terrible at noticing changes in swings. I'm just bad at it. So I defer to you on that one. I think just the production and the raw skills there are enough to get super excited about, and the fact that he seems to have made an adjustment is always a good sign, right?
Yeah. And that's saying something too. Again, this is another example of the Tigers doing work too. That players are getting better in their system and making progression where sometimes they get stagnant and didn't happen. Mm-hmm. So next up, number 4 on our list is Hao-Yu Lee. And this is a guy who Scott Harris was very adamant that should have been in the top 100. We are in the same boat too, and we're fan. Like, okay, I want to say we're fans per se. Let's we like his game. There you go.
Yeah, we're on a bit of an island with Hao-Yu Lee here. You don't see him, and we put out a tweet because just to prove our point that You go back 3 years, every player at AA, age 22 or younger, who hit like how you Lee was a top 100 prospect, either the year before or on lists or honorable mentions, and not him for whatever reason he wasn't. And this is in similar amount of plate appearances, all that stuff. And it was 21-year-old in AA with a 141 WRC plus. The only other 2 hitters that age or younger in the Tigers system over the last 20 years to produce like that were Riley Green and Colt Keith. The only other 2. So I mean, you're looking at least above average power, if not plus, definitely plus to the pull field. You'll see some home runs that he just destroys to pull field, like 430 feet. Maybe not in this video, but yeah, I mean, he just turns on the ball. And I think it's at least an average hit tool, if not above average. I think, in his prime, he's probably above average hit, above average power. He's kind of aggressive. I don't think it's going to be a huge problem, but he's not going to be somebody who walks at more than probably an average rate, like 7%. But he also doesn't strike out a ton. It was like 17, 18% strikeout rate. So he's going to put the bat on the ball. He's going to hit it hard. And then beyond that, he's more athletic than he's given credit for. And it's kind of, I describe it more as like an explosive athleticism rather than the smooth kind of fluid athleticism. You see it. He just kind of turns on the ball and drives it. And so he's a guy who I think could steal you 15 bases a year. And he's solid at second base on defense. We'd love to see him try a little bit more defense at third base, just because that would be beneficial for the organization. But the question about that is his arm. I think he's strong enough. Like his arm strength is good enough, but it feels like at times he almost has to like ramp up to make his strongest throw. Almost like it messes up his accuracy a little bit. And I know you had heard from a scout that was actually had some concerns about the way he held the ball, right?
Yeah.
Like they just didn't think it was going to work at third base. Even if he doesn't play at third base, you're talking about above average hit, above average power, good base running, and probably an average defender at second base. Not a Gold Glover or anything like that, but like to me, that's a really good player. It's probably a ceiling of like a Gleyber Torres or maybe an Isaac Paredes, right? Where you're talking like 3 or 4 wins, but I don't think his floor is much lower than an average big leaguer, right? I think he's like a 2-win player pretty easily. So it's strange to me that he's not ranked higher on lists.
Yeah, I mean, even like the way he like attacks a plate. I mean, like a lot of concerns could be the fact that he may not be able to hit sliders well, but I mean, what sucks about AA is like the data is not available. Like, looks like a pork chop. Sean says it looks like a pork chop holding a plank of wood. No, but the concerns is that whether you can hit sliders away, and the answer is, I wish there was more data available, and some of the data we did see that we had privy to us, thanks to people we know, was all good on highly advanced data. So to me, you're right, Chris. Look at that swing right there. It looks like he barely even barreled it up a little bit there, but he is the thing about when I saw him make his debut at third, I was there for that series, and you were absolutely correct. It was a lot of times where he was just winding it up, but again, playing a new position, and then he overthrew it. It wasn't like a skip, like he barely made the first. He was like, just like he waited too long to launch it, and just
almost like he's trying too hard to throw it hard or something like. I think it would be beneficial to try him at third base. Like he just turned 22 the other day. There's no particular rush. And yeah, I don't know. I really like him as a player. As you said, there's some concern that he's going to be a little too aggressive on sliders away. He's aggressive in everything. He's an aggressive base runner. He's an aggressive defender. He's an aggressive person who will yell at the ump and try to fight the other team.
Yeah. He's a gamer, man. I'll take that all day, man.
Yeah. And you'll see right there, that pitch right there. I don't know if that was a 2-strike pitch or not. No, it looked like it was a 2-ball pitch, but he will chase pitches early in the count, but he has a pretty good 2-strike approach. He will kind of tone it down a little bit and just shoot a line drive to right field, which I think is a good sign. I mean, my only real concern is injuries with him. He's played 3 seasons in the minors and hasn't played more than 87 games in any one of them. He's missed a month each year with a different kind of injury. And last year he got hit in the head twice in the span of like 10 days, which was not great. and then he hurt his back, I think, on a bus ride or something like that. So
allegedly,
you worry a little bit about that. But if he's healthy, I think you're talking, like I said, it's somewhere between an average to above average big leaguer.
Yeah, one of the things he told us during last year when I was out there was he was trying to work on getting better speed-wise and in terms of running with aggression and trying to lose a little bit of weight, if you will, on the base pass. So I do like the fact that he is constantly working on his game. Yeah. So
he went 16 for 17 on steal attempts last year.
Yeah. And that's
in 87 games.
Yeah. The proof's in the pudding. And it's one of those things where, like we always say, don't judge the stat line, but upon further review, it's worth more looking into that.
Yeah. Well, the thing is like, so we talk about the stats and you can't just base everything on stats, but the tools are fine. Like the tools are good. That's the part that gets me. But I guess you could argue that he doesn't have a single plus tool, which maybe, holds him back in the eyes of some. But I think, you got 4 average to above average tools. So that's fine with me.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll stand by this of number 4 on our list. No doubt. All day.
And if we're wrong, we'll change it.
Yeah.
Whatever. 2 months, we'll change it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we're pretty confident in his ability.
Yes. And we're also confident with this number 3 in Max Clark. And Max Clark, this was a tough one. This was a tough call between the three of us because, again, you could put any one of them here between him and Kevin McGonigle. But, I mean, it's Max Clark is, look, I will, again, people remember some people may remember my reaction on the draft night. I will eat crow all day long. Max Clark has watched him play live. We watched him play live, I think, 3 or 4 times last year. I think Chris has seen him a little more than I have. It's just the way his approach at the plate, just to take it the opposite way. The fact that he is just his speed out there, just smart baseball instincts, but the ability to just barrel up everything and just put it into play. It's outstanding. And I can understand why people are very, the hype on him behind him in high school was there. I mean, Clark is just, the guy's a badass. I mean, it was so much so that like security, when I remember, what was it in Lansing, where the security folks he was getting bombarded by security, where people like fans were really bombarding him to the point where the Tigers had to have security around him.
Yeah, there were 2 permanent security guards there to kind of make sure that nobody messed with them after the game. There were like 100 people lined up to get autographs.
Grown men. It was really weird.
Yeah, grown men and kids. There were kids.
Yeah.
Like it to your point, like we've said a bunch of times, it's like he and McGonigle are like 2A and 2B. With Clark, Jerry and I both had him 3rd in the system. You had him 2nd, and that's both of those are completely fine. That's the way it worked out. There's nothing he can't do on the baseball field. They drafted him as kind of a potential 5-tool guy with good baseball skills and superstar off the field persona, right? He's the guy who can transcend the game if he becomes the player that they think he is. He showed flashes of all of it last year. The strange thing was that it wasn't really there for like the first 2 months of the year. And he's still skilled enough that he was able to kind of mask that. But we talked about it at the beginning of the year, he was not really hitting the ball with any sort of authority. He was struggling against fastballs, and he was hitting a lot of weak ground balls to the left side of the infield. But he's still, it's like plus speed. So he got a bunch of infield singles, and he was walking a bunch. He's actually kind of passive. He only swung at 61% of balls in the strike zone in Lakeland last year, which is toward the bottom rating you'd see in the big leagues. It's actually like right with Juan Soto and Corbin Carroll. So it's not a bad thing per se, but basically he had a 119 WRC plus through like June 9th, based mostly on those infield singles and the walks. It was like a 16% walk rate, but his ISO was like 0.096. And then something clicked. From then on. He had a 139 WRC plus for the rest of the year with power. He started driving the ball all over the field, and hit an opposite field home run at one point. I saw him square up 99 and hit an opposite field double in West Michigan. So something with his swing clicked. And yeah, you got to see that. And then on top of that, right, stole a bunch of bases. I'm trying to remember the exact number. I've got it written down here. I think it's like 27. 29 bases on 33 tries, right? Also, excellent range in the outfield, like, legitimate center field range, and looks like he's going to have a plus glove at least. He made some really nice plays, and his arm works out there. Some people get overheated and say it's like a 70 arm. I don't think it's that strong. He had a couple nice throws, but we really didn't see it. He didn't have to like air it out a bunch of times. But like I said, all the tools are there. All you really want to see him do, and that's not to mention the production, right? He had a 990 OPS against left-handed pitching as a 19-year-old lefty. Just was not bothered one bit by same side pitching. He had 75 RBIs, mostly hitting as a leadoff hitter, just because he really seems to have a knack for the feel of the game, right? He'll punch the ball the opposite way when he needs to. He'll move a guy over, all that stuff. Just a really advanced feel for the game. So there's so much here to like. Superstar potential. You just want to see him find his permanent best swing, and you want to see him get the ball off the ground a little bit more. He had like a 48% ground ball rate. You'd love to see that get down to like 42, 43. But, that takes time sometimes. Riley Green had like a 50% ground ball rate for the first couple of years in the big leagues, and he finally got down to 42, 43 last year. So I'm not worried at all about Max Clark. And you just want to find get him, pull the ball in the air a little bit more, and you got a true 5-tool star.
Well said, sir. I mean, as far as like, there's a question that came in here from Sean. Prospect rankings, they have speed knocked down more 55 than 70 from what I've read.
I mean, we got him. We had him at 4 seconds.
Yeah.
Home to first, 4.05 home to first. You watch him. We got a clip on there of him hitting a triple at Lansing. He gets to third base in like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I don't think the speed's going to be an issue. I don't know. Yeah, he's going to be a lightning rod for a lot of stuff, attention, criticism. We haven't, I'm not somebody who's going to put like a 70 hit tool on him. I think he needs to work on his hit tool still, but yeah, then this is like a consensus top 30 prospect in baseball, and really a top 10 prospect to most people. So there's not much to complain about.
Yeah. Again, and I think, was this the triple? No, this wasn't the triple. I was thinking about, I think we were at this game too, actually.
Maybe.
Or no, this is at West Michigan. Sorry. I was thinking about they're playing Lansing, or maybe we were, I don't know. I know we saw him a couple times against Lansing at West Michigan. So, but either way, it's just sometimes with Lansing always blends together. But here's the thing too about Max Clark that you were mentioning, and it was highlight there. Notice how he, like simply, yeah. You know what? Thank you, Kevin.
Nice driving coach.
I think he's going to be just fine.
Here's the thing. Like all jokes aside, what I was going to say was, how many times he went opposite field just to put somebody to score runs? That to me just says a lot about him as a person, just like he is like people. I remember saying there was some stupid ass jackass guy was like, oh, he's going out there getting the gloves, like doing all that stuff for show. No, that's him anyways. Max Clark is a guy who is a good teammate, is a good that's who he is. He's the baseball guy. I don't understand why we do shit for show. It doesn't make any sense.
Oh, that was when he hit the game tying triple and then scored on the winning run on a balk. He was just kind of an electric factory up at West Michigan, and I'll get to see a little catch here.
Yeah. This is him. This is the speed right here showing off. Glove. What a catch.
So like it's just this weird thing, right? Where, like I said, there's a lot of hype there, so people are gonna naturally look for nits to pick. And what I'm saying now is anybody who reads our kind of blurbs on him, you're going to hear a lot of the same things. But if Kevin McGonigle didn't exist, we'd all be doing backflips about Max Clark, and we probably still should be. He's one of the 5 best prep hitters they've had in the last 20, 30 years. Put him up with Colt Keith and Nick Castellanos and Riley Green, and probably their most exciting overall prospect since Cameron Maben. Just like a true stud potential. And if he has a Cameron Maben career, maybe people will be a little bit disappointed, but that's he played for 15 years. He played forever. So yeah, I think people should be excited about Max Clark.
And this is, that was a triple because we were right there. So that's right. You can see it's like right here.
Yeah.
Like, that's funny. Although
Yeah, I know we have a clip of the triple from our perspective.
Yeah.
Which really, it's our camera angle, so you can just count. But
yeah, it's just funny because we're right there the whole time watching that happen. Anyway, yeah, you're right. If Kevin McGonigle, they have two. They have two in one and two in one list, which is Tigers never. They've had that kind of luck. They haven't had that ever. And you can't sit there and say like, Alan Trammell and Lou Whitaker, because back then, if you were looking at pure numbers in the 70s, which is an article I know Chris has talked about doing, if you look at Lou Whitaker's numbers on paper back then, they were pedestrian, very pedestrian. No one,
I think he hit one home run in his first pro season.
Yeah, it wasn't, and Alan Trammell, I think, was very just above a pedestrian too. But my point is that like Clark's a dude, and so there we go.
Yeah,
there's more to say about that, but yeah, let's go on to number 2 on our list, and number 2 on our list. I think you guys should know who number 2 should be on our list.
Yeah, I think by process of deduction, you probably figure out who the final 2 guys are. But yeah, it's Kevin McGonigle. Going out on a slight limb here, but I don't think so. I think that there are other places. Baseball Prospectus has him as a top 10 prospect. I think Kylie McDaniel has him as a top 10 prospect. He and again, Jerry and I had him ahead of Clark. Raj didn't, so I will just stay for my purposes. I think it's just the hit tool that pushes him ahead, and the underappreciated secondary tools. He's not just a stick, right? But he is an incredible hitter. It's like a 70 grade hit tool, everything you could want from a hitter. Short, quick to the ball, does not chase ever, does not swing and miss ever. His swing and miss rate, I talked about Briceño's being 7.5%. McGonigle's was 4.5% last year. That would be the third lowest in the majors, behind Luis Arias and Stephen Kwan. A 3-time batting champion and the bane of the Tigers' existence in the playoffs. And surprise, McGonigle already has more power than both of those guys. He was hitting for the same amount of his average exit velocity in Lakeland last year was basically the same as Briceño's. Now he's not, you see a bomb right there, but he's not a guy that's, going to put up huge 115 mile an hour exit velocities, but he did top 110 multiple times last year for such a small guy. It's just, it's like the perfect combination of hitting and plate discipline. 14.5% walk rate, right? Or 14% walk rate last year, 8.5% strikeout rate as a 19-year-old in his first season of pro ball, going from low A to high A. He's got a chance to win a batting title one day. He's that good of a hitter. And so that, pushes him way up for me. And then there's the underappreciated stuff. I talk about the power already. Like I think, in his prime, he may be a guy who can hit 20 home runs a season, if not more, just based on his contact level and his ability to turn on the ball like that. So you've got that. I think it's at least average raw power. He's an above average runner. What did he go to 22 for? I got to keep looking this up. 22 for 24 on stolen base attempts last year, and again, in not a full season. So he's that, and he's a solid defender. He's like most people project him to play second base, where I think he could be an above average defender. But there's a world out there where Kevin McGonigle is hitting 300 with 20 home runs and 20 steals while playing average shortstop at the major league level, which is that's like a 6-WAR player. Now that's probably not the most likely outcome, but even if you say 15 home runs, 15 steals, hitting 280 while playing above average second base, that's a 4 or 5 win player every year. And just I don't think people appreciate how high his ceiling is. It's almost like they feel like, Clark has this giant ceiling and McGonigle's more like this high floor guy. His ceiling is enormous. So I don't know. It's not like they jump off the chart tools, but a 70 grade hit tool will carry you a long way. And there's nothing not to like about him other than he had 2 injuries last year.
I like what Problematic says right here, and that's simply I have more confidence in his bat. I just feel like he's got hitting figured out to the point where last year he wasn't being challenged, and he was taking more like in terms of like there was right before he got called up to West Michigan down in Lakeland, he was just kind of looking for a challenge. I mean, there's not a game or not a highlight that I watched of him where he looked overmatched at all down in low A. Not one single time. He was toying with these people. And the reason why it was tough for me to make the decision over Clark. It is like 1A. Like we've mentioned this numerous times. I almost went like eeny, meeny, miny, mo. I mean, all jokes aside, it was just what I worry about McGonigle. The only thing I worry about McGonigle is health. And I know that doesn't factor into that kind of thing, but really, I mean, I honestly I like Clark's speed. I think he's a little slightly quicker, but it's just like, again, tomato. It really, Kevin McGonigle is the best Tiger infielder prospect we've probably seen in a long time. As far as like we were mentioning earlier, we were high on Cole Keefe early on. There was reason, like Baseball America got really excited when the Tigers drafted him at first, and we were like, oh, we heard about things on the prep circuit, and you knew more than I did about it. But like Baseball America was like, wow, the Tigers got a really good steal here, and they were really high on him right away. And then you saw him bat right down in Lakeland. And we had a chance to talk to him too. And he's just the same thing, just a baseball guy, just grinds out these bats. It's a different type of player the Tigers are drafting. These guys are really, I hate saying baseball gym rats because I hate saying that term, but I feel like it's, and Corey, that's well said. Corey said this here in the chat, and he said, it still amazes me he was a competitive balance pick.
That's so yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like his track record of hitting on the showcase circuit and the amateur circuit was impeccable. He hit like 430 over like 100 perfect game performances in tournaments. Just always hit no matter what. But people were worried about the power. And I guess you could say that is still possibly a concern, that he might not hit for much power. He might be an 8 to 10 home run guy or something like that. But I don't think so. The way just his pure hitting ability and the pop that's in there and his aptitude, I could see him learning to just really pull the balls more, maybe even swing a little bit more. He's another guy who didn't swing enough. But again, that's not a bad issue when you know the zone well enough to know which pitches you can attack. Yes, people were scared of his height. That is absolutely true. Smaller hitters, and there are some teams that will really lean into that and like guys like that. Look at Arizona. They got Alec Thomas. They got Corbin Carroll. They took Slade Caldwell this year or last year's draft. They don't mind. They actually kind of like these guys, and I do too. They're short levers. They're quick to the ball. They don't swing and miss much. It's I don't know. He's a really exciting prospect, and I'm trying to think what else there is to say about him. Really, it's I don't know. I'm hoping he stays healthy. He did, we did see he broke his hamate bone, which is known for sapping power from guys. So he might not hit for much power this year, but I still think it's in there. And then one other thing, when you said he was basically not challenged at all in low A, when he came up to high A, the numbers aren't great. It was only 14 games, and he had a couple hiccups on defense early, but I think he was fine otherwise. But pitchers weren't doing anything. He walked 11 times and struck out 4 times in 14 games in high A. He's like, if you guys aren't going to throw me a strike, I'm not going to swing at it. And you'll never see him swing and miss at the same pitch twice in one at bat. You might get him with a changeup, but then he downloads it and he's going to hit it the next time.
Smart, like just is like a computer out there with that. And so, I like what Jaden said here too. Jaden, right on the site, some teams are obsessed with 5-tool raw potential. And Kevin, if you will make Double-A this year, I think the Tigers might be conservative and just keep them at West Michigan all year. I don't know. Go ahead, Chris.
I would be kind of surprised if he and Clark don't reach Double-A by the second half of the season, or by August.
Okay, that's
Just based on the fact that they came up to high A last year around the same time and both held their own. I assume they're going to start there this year. but I don't see any reason that they're going to struggle and not get to Double-A.
No, I meant that in a sense that like if the Tigers tend to be conservative with these kind of things, so maybe they would wait till last minute. But I just I don't know, like maybe not till probably till after the All-Star break, I would think. But
it usually they like to see the guys dominate the competition and dominate the level, and a lot of times it's moving guys up requires you to move somebody down or cut somebody, and they don't like to do that. There may be some room at Erie this year. We'll see.
I was just gonna say with how you lead, that's the other thing. It's like depends on what happens if the Tigers do sign Alex Bregman. I mean, Young would be in Toledo technically, or would you put Lee? Would you put him at third? I don't know. There's a couple things that factor into it, so that's why. I'm not gonna say they would definitely see Double-A though. And number one, I mean, goes without saying, Jackson Jobe, he will not probably be number one for that long if you think about it. The grand scheme of things, but it is a consensus number one, no questions asked. He's a guy who made it to what just happened? Why is this showing me Chase Dolander's highlights? I didn't want that at all.
Yeah, sometimes you got a Dolander. Yeah, I know he got to the big leagues, made 2 starts in AAA, got to the big leagues. It was another year where he was kind of hampered a little bit by an injury. Last year was a hamstring, but was pretty darn good before, pretty darn good after. And everybody who saw him in the big
I think
leagues,
he's going to be just fine.
you see, it's hard not to see the potential. And we talked about this on our Patreon thing yesterday, that he is the highest ranked pitching prospect in the Detroit Tigers history.
Yeah,
by just about any measure. We went through and looked at Verlander and Andrew Miller and Jacob Turner and Rick Porcello and Casey Mize. He's higher ranked than all of them. Doesn't mean he's going to be better than any of them, but this is one of the premium pitching prospects in Tigers history.
Yeah, and people quickly forget that just 2 years ago, people were ragging on the Tigers for picking him over Marcelo Meyer, and Tigers are terrible, blah, 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 blah. And of course, Jackson Jobe just said, shut the hell up. And, and went out and pitched and he was on, what was it? Was he on Days of War recently? Yeah, he did.
Yes.
It was in Days of War, did a fantastic job. And hear him talk about pitching design but even like when he struggled I thought he got squeezed in Erie a little bit though. I mean, the umpiring in Erie was so inconsistent last year. It was it was a lot of times where he was just getting squeezed, and he had to overcome that a little bit. And I thought he did. And look, it's just like, and look, I'm glad there's people like you problematic where you're like, I'm not afraid to admit I was mad we took him at the moment. I was too for a brief second. I fully admit it. I thought Meyer was the overwhelming choice at the time because I wanted the Tigers to have a shortstop in them. So anyway, it's okay to, like I said, we're not like certain sports radio stations in town. We admit we're wrong and just kind of go from there. And that's the way you got to go about it. And that's the way you live life. But Jobe, no, it was what was interesting in Toledo too was in terms of sequencing and working on pitches. The Tigers asked him to do something in Toledo, didn't they? When he got to AAA,
they said they wanted him to work on some stuff. They didn't say what it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is funny to go back and think about it, right? Because you go back and they take the high school pitcher who everybody, at the time, everybody agrees it's such a risky profile instead of the sure thing high school shortstop that they desperately needed, right? And he's a kid who's famous for this high spin slider, this crazy spin rate, and he comes into pro ball in his first season. It's not great. He strikes out a lot of guys, but it's a 4.52 ERA, primarily in low A. It's like, well, that's not great. And he did get up to high A West Michigan at the end of that season for a cup of coffee, and that's when we saw him, I think, as we put it, eat Pete Crow Armstrong's lunch. Yeah. So the potential was there, and then he hurts his back prior to the next season, right? And it's like, oh man, this is terrible. This is everything that's could go wrong has. And I've said this before, but the thing that impresses me most about Jackson Jobe is not the stuff, which is outstanding. It's his aptitude for pitching and getting better. So he had that back problem, comes back from that, has a better fastball shape. It's throwing harder. He has added a cutter that becomes an excellent pitch for him. And his changeup was outstanding, and he still had the sweeper. Just being able to do that in one off season while he's injured was tremendous to me. And the funny thing is now is that sweeper, I don't even know if he's going to use it much anymore. It for whatever reason at the upper levels in AA, AAA, hitters don't swing at it. They don't swing at it. They take it occasionally if he can aim it at their front hip like a right-handed hitter, but they don't swing at it. I think it moves too much. But his changeup is so good, and his fastball is good enough, and the cutter's good that he's going to still get strikeouts. And it seems like in the offseason, he's adding more weapons. He sounds like he's going to add a more traditional curve or maybe more traditional slider. And so, like, he's a guy that I like. The sky's the limit with him because of that aptitude. And then it, helps to have this incredible athleticism and raw talent. So, yeah, there's not a whole lot to like or dislike there. Again, this is kind of like the third or fourth time we mentioned this. The only thing you worry about really is injuries. He's been injured a couple times, nothing major, no arm, no elbow, no shoulder, but backs always worry us a little bit. And then the hamstring, soft tissue last year. So he hasn't thrown a lot of innings, but, everything else is there. Just a filthy changeup. I put a 70 on his changeup. I think it's an outstanding pitch.
Yeah. Good late fade to it.
Yeah. And then the only other reminder is, and we've said this before, is that, even with all his talent, all right, the big leagues is a different animal. So you got to remember that it takes time. And the examples we used was, Justin Verlander didn't become the all-world Justin Verlander until his third full season in the big leagues, or fourth full season, really, 2006, 2007, fourth, 2009. And same with Skubal, right? Skubal was a Cy Young pitcher this year. He gave up 1 billion home runs in his first year and a half. So Jobe is going to have to get to the big leagues and make some adjustments. But he's got all the talent in the world to be like a true ace down the road. Like it's a number 1, number 2 starter ceiling. So people should be super excited about it, as they should be.
I like what Problematic said here too. He said that that's why he was mad, zero confidence in organization developing him then. The farm system revamp was in infancy at the time. And you're right, because I think it was Spencer. I'm trying to think of the pitcher that was in Baltimore that was a former Tiger.
Oh, yeah, Spencer Watson.
And Spencer Watson, I remember this is why it's prevalent to the conversation. He said that the Tigers are starting to do things right when he was leaving.
Spencer Watkins, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, Spencer Watkins, sorry. He started doing things. They started working on things as he was leaving. That goes to show exactly the difference between the last administration. So for everybody who's like, well, this was Avila's guys. Yeah, but Garco and the rest of the staff did something with him. Like I said, we like just being around since 2018, talking to folks and everything. It is within the last couple of years where you actually heard and seen the difference between peanut butter and jelly sandwiches to protein shakes is night and day. And
salad and lean chicken and rice. Yeah, just all the things that have. There's a reason the farm system has gotten so much better in the last couple of years. It's because they've paid attention to it and have cared about it. And I think Al Avila wanted to do that. He had started moving that way. I don't know if he really knew how to do it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, a lot of these guys they've benefited from that. I mean, you see, this was a game that I think he had the sweeper working really well in this game. I want to say he had 8 or 9 strikeouts, or he had I think he got the final 15 batters he faced out in this game against Reading. So, yeah, I mean, it's fun watching Jobe highlights. We put a bunch of them up there. JJ Cooper at Baseball America did a really good article because Jobe's walk rate kind of skyrocketed last year after he walked 2 people the year before. And so Cooper was, looking into it and saying, is this something we worried about? And he determined no. Jobe's still threw a well above average amount of strikes. He just, for whatever reason, and Jobe talked about this on Mark and Evan's podcast, he would often get ahead of guys 0-2 and then couldn't put them away. And they just foul pitches off, and he'd eventually walk them. And so that was his focus in this offseason, was to find more out pitches or to do better executing on 0-2. And I think, as I said, the aptitude is off the charts, so I think he will.
Yeah, there's no reason for him not to. And it's just the amount of progress he made last year, or just in general, just learning how to pitch better, overcoming, like I said, the kind of slow start he did at AA. He's going to be fine. And it is like I say, he's not going to be number one for very long, and then it's just a matter of who's going to grab the next number one on our list. So Jackson Jobe, I believe, would be our second pitcher. Tarek Skubal was number one originally, right?
I think so. I don't know. I'd have to. I don't remember what our list was back in 2019 and 2020.
Yeah.
I think we probably had Skubal ahead of Mize. I don't remember.
I know we did. I know we did for that. I'm pretty sure we did.
But
yeah,
it's this is as we said at the start. This is a basically a consensus top 5 VAR system in baseball. We talked about 5 guys today. That the top 3 are top 30 everywhere. Number 4 and number 5 were a little bit higher on than the industry, but that's why you guys listen to us, right? We pay attention to these guys and basically exclusively these guys, and we believe in our rankings, but we also admit when we're wrong. So
yeah,
come back and take a victory dance if we're wrong about these guys.
Yeah, I mean, I will freely admit when I'm wrong. It's the right thing to do, and I mean, these listeners again, we get kind of confused about, like I said, why Haiyu Lee was not ranked higher. Yeah, absolutely. But I'm sure they have their reasons. And I mean, we also keep in mind, there's something different about us than a lot of the other lists. First and foremost, a lot of these guys talk to other scouts. We talk to some scouts. We talk to some people. We are like our like, for example, there's always like, there's people out there that have somebody that works in a clubhouse or something like that. We don't have that. We have to really rely on this. And I mean, we do get people that tell us things, and over the years, we've had more people tell us things, which helps us a lot and helps us evaluate or confirm a thought we had. But a lot of this has just like been pure hustle, and people, and I appreciate everybody listening and watching us, because to me, it means a lot. First and foremost, it just means a lot. But secondly, there's people out there who are fans will say, I see this, and it's like, oh, I didn't even think about that. And learning from people who are casual fans as well. It's just been a very rewarding experience. Because I don't like gatekeeping either. Like, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. And I know we're talking about this a lot, but it's just, I don't know. It's just because like my experience last year was reaching out to some people and not hearing anything, like just seems unprofessional and kind of bullshit, if you ask me, but whatever. I'm not trying to be bitter about it, but sometimes when we have interactions, we have comments, we had a fan, gentleman who left us like a $99 super tip. Thank you. And then we had a gentleman share his story. He used to be an editor for the Ypsilanti Press, share his story about how the Tigers used to be really cheap and with Tom Manning. And so nuggets like that, we really appreciate. It's just, to me, it's just awesome to get to do this and people actually watch and listen. So thank you.
Yeah, and we've got these kind of player capsules all out on the Patreon. Well, the last one will be coming out, and then they'll be going up on the site. And then I think we probably, we'll be doing some scouting reports, but we also might get to play around. It might be another month or so, but start doing the kind of minor league depth charts to figure out where everybody's going to be, and that's always fun. I did, we did get a question very early on about the guy that they got from Alex Faedo, Anderson Delgado, which I still haven't really dug into him much. But a switch hitting catcher who's renowned for his defense, had a decent offensive season. You probably throw him right in that bucket with Enrique Jimenez as somewhere in that like 25 to 35 range in the system, and good catching depth. So I thought that was a nice move. The Rays, the Rays may turn Alex Faedo into like the Rolaids reliever of the year or something like that. But
we're just gonna put him on the third base side of the rubber and let him go.
I'm a little bit skeptical of that, but if they do, more power to them. I don't think the Tigers are necessarily going to miss Faedo that much. I think they have enough arms right now that they can get away with that, and it'll be interesting to see. People were, guessing who they might release to sign Flaherty. We keep saying it's got to be Englert and Kreidler at some point, right? They feel like the last two guys in the 40-man, but I didn't necessarily see Faedo coming. It made some sense, but maybe they do it with Manning, right? Maybe they use these DFAs as kind of spurring other teams to make a trade, right? Like when you feel like, hey, we like this guy, we want to get him, we're going to have to give something up, rather than like, hey, would you guys like this? They try to get it for bottom dollar. I don't know. It seems unlikely, but we'll see.
Those, by the way, the pitching talking about Owen Hall's stock going up. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
We had him. Where do we have him? We have him
18, 17, 18.
Yeah, I think that's right. We have him. Yeah, 17. Which I still think is right. Like, the bullpen was very impressive. They posted, seeing him hit 98 regularly with a pretty nasty changeup. It's very fun, but it's one like bullpen video, right? It's not. It was against live hitters, but it's not game action. It's not. It's like reacting to somebody hitting off a tee a little bit. Like you can get excited about what you see, but I don't want to go crazy based on a bullpen, right? We want to see him go out there and perform and see what he can do. But very exciting, right? I mean, a big time arm, very promising.
There was a good question about Gage Workman making the Cubs. He joined with Jake asked a question about him making the roster. Honestly, if they don't sign Alex Bregman, there's a possibility. I mean, look, the thing about Gage Workman last year is once he figured out, like he got his swing mechanics down and just settled on one side of the plate, he was fine. Defensively, he's fine too. Workman is one of those guys that, I mean, he just turned 25. So
he's younger than you might think just because he was very young when they drafted him.
Yeah. But I mean, I think he has a good chance to make the team out of camp. Unlike it's funny too, because what's his face? Down in Miami, the only move that the Florida Marlins or the Miami Marlins made was drafting
Liam Hicks.
Yeah, Liam Hicks, who's going to be who's going to probably start the year as their starting catcher.
That's possible. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've for all of Workman's terrific tools, and there are 4 tools that are pluses. I've just never believed in his hitting ability. I think he's probably a 20 hitter when all is said and done. Somebody who struggles to hit more than 200 in the big leagues. His swing is just kind of grooved, and he doesn't adjust it terribly well. But we've always said when he makes contact, he does a lot of damage. He's a plus runner, maybe even better underway. He's an outstanding defender at third base. He can handle shortstop. I always found him to be a little bit gaff prone at shortstop. But if you're hitting for power, you can fill in on the left side of the infield. You've got speed. A team can use you. But as you said, if they sign Bregman, I don't think he's going to see the field. If they don't, I could see him making the team, just kind of filling in if Matt Shaw gets off to a slow start. If Swanson or Nico Horner need a day off, he could play all those positions. He's played a little bit of outfield before too. He's a great athlete. So I think he's got a chance. I wouldn't necessarily bank on it, but I could also see him, even if he doesn't make the team, I could very easily see the Cubs just working out a deal with the Tigers.
Yeah.
Because, and I don't know, he doesn't necessarily, the Cubs have a pretty deep farm system too, but it just doesn't necessarily feel like the Tigers need Gage Workman in their system right now, if that makes sense, right? They've got a handful of other guys who can kind of do some of the same things.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I could see is if they make a trade somehow, if they make a trade, meaning that if the Tigers do something else and then they suddenly need a shortstop and then he doesn't make the team, something like that. And then final question for the evening from Griff. Do you think Justice Bigby 2024 is who he is, or does he come back on the scene strong this year if he get a shot at the bigs at some point, if and when an injury happens? It really depends on his swing mechanics. Now, if he's hitting for more power, if he's hitting for more power, then yeah. But it would kind of have to be a wholesale change for that to happen. Honestly, Bigby, and this is something Griff we addressed a couple times on the last couple of shows. Griff is one. I think the biggest thing that Bigby represents is the last of bastion of what Tiger prospects used to be, which is guys that are I don't want to say this, Chris. They're athletic, but they don't it's not the Tigers are not going to draft guys like that anymore. They're not gonna, guys without a position, if you will. He's
a corner only defender and not particularly good in those positions, right? It's basically left field, right field. Unfortunately, we were as high on Bigby as anybody, but unfortunately, I think last year probably was who he is because he had that approach and it worked great through A ball and double A. He stings the ball up the middle into the opposite field, and pitchers in triple A just didn't have any trouble pounding him inside and basically getting him to hit the ball on the ground Unless he has a pretty profound swing change to get the ball in the air more to the pull field, particularly against velocity on the inner third, I don't really see anything happening for him. I'm not saying it's out of the question, and if he does, that'd be an awesome story. But I'm pretty skeptical at this point.
Yeah, it has to be something that has to be a wholesale change for that to happen. I mean, problematic said it best. He's got to reinvent himself. Again, it's just the last. I don't see the Tigers drafting these kind of players going forward. They're going to draft more speed guys. They're going to draft quicker twitch guys. There's got to be a lot more athleticism.
Yeah, the outfielders they're going to draft are going to be guys that look like Brett Callahan and Jackson Strong. These guys who can, they're above average runners, above average athletes. They can play all three outfield positions, even if they're not necessarily future center fielders. It's not going to be. But Bigby was a 19th, 20th rounder, so it's not a huge deal.
Yeah, but it's still a good story nevertheless. And so either way. So we're out of time, and it's getting close to 11. And we thought that things would happen, and again, damn you, MRM. I'm just gonna say that people, it was our source was wrong again.
Bregman is the last man standing, I guess, unless you want to count Nick Pivetta.
Yeah.
But with Pete Alonso signing, it's
that's a Jim Beller with off the top rope with that comp. I like that.
What's that now?
He says, "How you lead reminds me of Jose Ramirez." They should definitely try him at third.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to. I mean, he's kind of got the same build, right?
Yeah.
Kind
stocky,
of pudgy athleticism, if you will. I mean, obviously, like Jose Ramirez is a probable Hall of Famer. You don't want to go crazy there. I've gone crazy enough to compare McGonigle to him, but yeah, if you want to dream about it, 99th percentile outcome, sure.
So tomorrow, by the way, if the Motor City Metrics podcast will be going on, and so for people out there, yes, Ashley will be joining us tomorrow. It basically, depending on whatever happens tomorrow, if anything, if Bregman, who knows? Again, Bregman could sign day of spring training. I'm not really sure. Mm-hmm. So, Josh says got announced at 10, Bregman at 11, maybe. I mean, we're sitting about an hour 22. I mean, the NBA trade deadline is tomorrow too, and the Pistons might be doing something. So, yeah, it's going to be it's going to be active next couple days or so. But we'll see. I mean, you'll be funny is like as soon as I put this up, as soon as we hit record, and I go to YouTube to change it to put it on our playlist. Josh is probably gonna be right. It's gonna be like a right all of a sudden out of nowhere, boom. And
I don't
know.
I like you said, it's been such a weird, drawn out thing with Bregman where you hear and everybody wants to, all the public or the national people are trying to send him to Boston, and now there's like this big kind of lots of smoke about him going to the Cubs. But it's just funny seeing like Buster Olney kind of slowly out loud in public realize that the Tigers are probably the best fit. He was like, "Hey, yeah, speaking of Bregman, the Tigers do kind of make some sense." It was like, yes,
thank you, Buster.
Just because you haven't thought about the Tigers for the entire offseason, but that's just the way it is. And, people want to see a guy like Bregman in a bigger market, and we'll see. We'll see. He might want to be in a bigger market too. We don't know.
Yeah,
it may ultimately just come down that he didn't want to come to Detroit, and that's his prerogative as a free agent. So we'll see.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, the I didn't even think about that market thing because I mean, living in the Detroit area, you think of like, why not us? Why not us? Just, I hate to say the cliche Detroit versus everybody but it's somewhat true. Again, people like you could say, well, Chicago's no big deal. Oh, Chicago's actually, Chicago's got its perks comparatively speaking to Detroit. But either way, it doesn't matter. The point is, this is a better situation for him. Somebody brought up too the batting average at Comerica Park. It's small sample size, folks. And
yeah,
you said in Discord, if he went 4 for 4 in the game, he'd be.
Yeah, he's hitting 227 at Comerica in his career and like 82 at bats. So yeah, if he went 4 for 4, it'd be 260, which is what he hit last year, right? And it's you can't base anything off that.
Larry's trying to do the Beatles in here. Imagine, or no, sorry, it's John Lennon, not the Beatles. It's for solo album, I think. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Like I said, we'll be on the Motor City Metric side of things tomorrow at 9:00. I'm with you, Problematic. I have Bregman fatigue. We just want, right now, my goal is just to get some more funds for spring training, get down there, get that going, either for the futures game or the prospects game or the start of season. So start of spring training, which is just around the corner. It's Tigers' first game on TV, by the way, for spring training is February 23rd against the Yankees on the road in Tampa. So it's the second game of spring training. They just announced the schedule today. So yeah, there's Tigers baseball is just around the corner, ladies and gentlemen. And thank the Lord, because this has been January. Like, I hate this time of year. Like, January, February, it just drags on. It's cold. It's been bitter, like this Arctic freeze crap. It has sucked. It sucked. The weather has just been terrible. Anyway, and you got baseball on the corner. So, and I'm just checking Twitter right now and nothing. So it's just John Heyman doing a victory tour for the Mets, because that's what he does. And so I'm wearing a quarter zip shirt right now. But thanks so much for watching. And wow, there's still people that don't want Bregman here in Detroit. I respect that. I respect people's,
Yeah, I
somewhere Stan or regular listeners like, no.
I don't. I mean, I'm somebody who likes to get good players any way you can, and I think Bregman's a very good player. He might fall off a cliff, but I think he's going to give you at least 3 to 4 good years. So that seems like a good idea to me for a team that is going to have Skubal for maybe 2 more seasons.
Yeah. But yeah, thanks so much. Like I said, we'll see what happens. Thanks so much for watching. Have a good night, everybody.